Hello, it's a pleasure to see all of you here this evening. Thank you for coming out. I know that sometimes this time of day can be difficult for people. Our intention is that you can come and have an opportunity to meet with some of the candidates that are running here in Northeast Indiana for the Indiana General Assembly. Gives you a chance to see the difference in how these candidates stand on various issues, disability-related issues, as you well know. We have some crossover issues with other organizations as well. But I want to thank all of the candidates that are here for coming this evening and giving us an opportunity to meet with you. We do know that we have several other candidates that will be kind of coming in. They're coming from a distance for one reason or another, and they'll be coming in a little later, so we may see some other people fill up the table as the time goes on. But we need to get started. Now I'm going to introduce you to Doug Schmidt. Where are you, Douglas? Okay, Doug is the moderator for the event tonight. He will talk to you about the process of the forum. And then one other introduction, David Nelson. Could you stand up there? David is the current chair of NIDAC, Northeast Indiana Disability Advocacy Coalition. And if you don't know us, your program tells all of the organizations on the back. All of us, all of these organizations are professional people that know a lot about disability issues. Probably keep this as a resource because you as elected officials are going to want to know these people and talk to them. They'll be able to help you with the kind of question you might have about disability issues. And again, thank you for coming. Did I introduce you, David?
Yes.
I did? Yeah. As the current chair. Yeah. President and CEO of the League for the Blind and current chair of NIDA. Good. All right, thank you for all of you, and I'll turn it back over to Doug now. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming out. And again, welcome to the forum. And I'd like to start off by thanking all of the candidates for taking time out of your very, very busy schedules to come on out and speak with us. So first, each candidate will have 3 minutes to make a personal statement about themselves and their ideology or your favorite food, whatever you want to talk about. It's up to you. And after each candidate has made their personal statement, we'll proceed to questions. We have a number of questions that have been submitted to us, as Sherry mentioned, by the Northeast Indiana Disability Organizations. We've got questions about special education, transit, accessibility.
Okay.
Special education, that's in the other room, that's not me. We have questions about special education, transit, and other important disability issues. Each candidate will take turns answering questions in the order of their district numbers. If you don't know your district number, don't worry, I'll call on you. So I will draw a random question from the fishbowl here and ask each candidate. They'll give their answer, and then I'll move on to the next candidate with a new question. Each candidate will have a maximum of 2 minutes, to answer a question. And Orlin, here in the front row, will be our timekeeper. And I will also raise my hand when you have 30 seconds left. All right, let's get started. Sounds like, okay. 15th District, Jack Morris, personal statement, please.
Hi, I'm Jack Morris. I'm a Democratic candidate for Indiana State Senate. I'm pretty much a lifelong resident of Fort Wayne. My family moved here when I was 3. Lived in those little duplexes out on South Anthony, if you know them. My dad had a gas station there at Anthony McKinney. Grew up through the local school system, graduated from Southside High School. Went on to college, quit initially, went into Brick-Tendon, got back in college just to play baseball, but then got inspired by a history teacher at a junior college, and that motivated me to actually begin pursuing education, and then went on to law school, graduated from law school, And after 8 months in the Indianapolis area, I moved my practice here to Fort Wayne and have remained since. I grew up in District 15. My office has always been in District 15, and I've lived in District 15 other than a very short time when they had different boundaries. But it's important for me to want to serve Fort Wayne, but this group particularly. As an attorney, I've had the blessed opportunity to serve the disabled community in a variety of different ways. As a product of being involved in those variety of different ways, I was approached by the ADA Coalition quite a few years ago when the city of Fort Wayne wasn't being very responsive with curb ramps. And I was asked if I'd be willing to pursue a claim against them under the ADA. And we did. We brought a suit in federal court against the city of Fort Wayne, and we were able to get them to begin the process of bringing them into compliance. We entered into an agreed process by which they were to do that. And I believe the city's proceeding to do that in a much better way. Not all of them are perfect, but they're much better. I've had a chance in many other situations to help out with other people within the disabled community. It's always my philosophy that we try to include all people in all ways possible. The more people we can involve in our community, the better we all are. And my practice has carried that forward, and hopefully I can share some of those thoughts with you tonight, and I'd love the opportunity to be able to advocate for you down at the State House. Thank you.
Thank you. And Liz Brown, personal statement, please.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. I had the pleasure of participating in a forum in the spring before the primary, and it's nice to be back here. My name is Liz Brown. I am the Republican candidate for State Senate District 15, and my husband and I have lived here over almost 25 years, and raised our 7 children here. And I used to be on the city council. Before that, I actually just mostly did a heck of a lot of volunteer work in the community and with my children's schools. But I sort of dipped my toe into politics when our youngest was starting high school, and I was going to have a little more free time on my hands. So that's how I've gotten involved. And since then, I've been interested in getting more involved even at the state level in terms of making sure that the state of Indiana is the best education system it can provide, and would be a leader in the country. And I think we're heading in that direction, but we have some improvements to make. I also want to make sure that economically that we have a sound fiscal policy and a budget that we can afford. Some of our neighboring states, as you might know, are not in such a positive balance sheet as we do. And then finally, workforce development, which I think from some of your questions we're going to be answering tonight, some of you will be interested in that. And that just doesn't mean higher education, but how can we give all of our individuals who are looking for work, how can we provide the skills that they need to fit the jobs that we have right now. So thanks very much, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you. And now, 52nd District, Charlie Odier, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charlie Odier. I'm chairman of the DeKalb County Democrats. I'm vice chairman of the 3rd District Democrats. I'm chairman of the Rapid Response for United Steelworkers. I've lived in Fort Wayne most of my life. The thing I do is I'm involved. I'm involved with Toys for Tots, Socks for Seniors. I ran a charity out of Woodburn called Caring and Sharing, where we help cancer patients with their bills get back and forth to Indianapolis for their treatments. I'm a pure advocate for giving back, because that's what the people of the state have to do. We need a voice for everybody to be fair and equal to every person in the state. And some people just don't get heard. And I'd like to be the person that goes to the State House and puts forward the things that we need to get done. Thank you all.
Thank you. It's Odier?
Odier.
Odier, I got that wrong. Sorry, I'm sure you've heard that joke for
Trying to
years.
repeat it over the phone. I think they forgot your name.
Okay, now 82nd District, Representative David Ober. Is that right, Ober?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug. It's great to be with you this evening to hopefully answer your questions and hear some of your concerns as we move into the election season and into next session, hopefully. My name is David Ober. I am the current state representative for District 82, which includes all of Noble County and portions of Northwest Allen, Churubusco, and parts of LaGrange and Elkhart County. So it gets around to 4 other counties in Northeast Indiana. Grew up in Noble County. I went to Cincinnati High School. I'm a Purdue graduate. And really it was during my time in college that I fell in love with politics and policy and how do we make Indiana the best state, not just for job creation and business, but also for the people that live here. I have to say you have a very strong voice that is heard throughout this state, but certainly with our Northeast Indiana delegation. We have one of the strongest delegations in the State House simply because we have a bunch of servant leaders that listen to not just those in this room, but also others in our region. So please know that you are heard and that your concerns are very important to those of us who are making policy and making those important decisions at the State House. I'm finishing my first term and I'm looking to start a second term. I serve on the Employment, Labor, and Pensions Committee in the House, as well as the House Ways and Means Committee. And thank you again for the opportunity, and look forward to having another conversation about the issues tonight.
Thank you.
My name is Fred Haig, resident of Fort Wayne, running in the 84th District. My opponent is Bob Morris. I didn't see you this evening. My background, I was born in Boston, the son of a Methodist minister and the grandson of a Methodist minister. And my dad was a theological instructor at Boston University. Shortly after I was born, he became the editor of the Cokesbury Methodist Publishing House in Nashville, and I spent the early part of my life in Nashville, Tennessee. Towards the end of my student career, I ended up in Iowa, where my dad oversaw the Hispanic and migrant workers that came to pick tomatoes and some of the crops that were needing to be harvested every year. I was good at music since I was a 5-year-old, and I ended up with a music scholarship. Several colleges offered that. I chose DePaul University here in Indiana. Never had been here before. My educational background is a bachelor's degree from DePaul, a master's degree from St. Francis, an educational administration degree from IPFW, and a doctorate from Ball State University in education. I also have experience as a teacher. I taught in the Fort Wayne Community Schools 30 years and in private schools in this area for 6 years. I spent 2 years down at Ball State as an adjunct professor and 1 year at Manchester College, now Manchester University. I also have a blended family. My wife and I have been married for about 30 years, and we have 7 children between us and 14 grandchildren. I love them all dearly. Some of them are Republicans, some are Democrat. I spent many years, the last 40 years, in prayer with my younger sister Nancy, who is disabled and lives in assisted living in Cincinnati. I'm very familiar with some of the issues involved in that. I look forward to answering your questions later, and appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
And Representative Phil Giaquinta, 80th District, personal statement, please.
Thank you. Personal statement.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yes,
Personal
thanks.
statement.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late, but made it for the introductions, and I told folks out there at the table I may have to, if I got a little bit early, I have another reception that I need to attend. And but I remember coming to the event a couple years ago, I think maybe even 4 years ago, I think, Jack, you and I were here, so it's certainly one that I like to attend, and I appreciate you all for taking time to come out well and really put the forum on for all of us. I was first elected in 2006, and so I'm seeking another term. I am unopposed, so for better or worse, you're stuck with me for another 2 years. But more than happy to do all I can to work on the issues that are important to you. I think one thing that we have to keep in mind here as we go forward in a budget year, which is what the lung session is coming up. We talked a little bit about this, I think, at the last forum that we had when we discussed budget budget requests, things like that, is what's going to be the priority for our state. What things are going to make our top priorities? Can't fund everything. We know that. But on the other hand, when the state of Indiana is sitting at a $2 billion surplus, we know that there are many needs for citizens in the state of Indiana. I think it's imperative that everyone who's ever elected really do the best they can to make sure that those that frankly that need it the most are made a number one priority this time. Too often focusing too much on tax cuts, and then we have this $2 billion surplus with a B, and therefore some of the neediest of the Hoosiers are being left behind. So I'm going to stick around for a few minutes, if you don't mind, and maybe answer some of your questions, and I will have to leave a little bit early, but it's been a real pleasure to serve my citizens and the rest of the state of Indiana. Looking forward to doing it again for another 2 years. Thank you.
Okay, that's everybody for sure this time, right? Okay, good. All right, again, I'll be drawing questions at random from the fishbowl, and except for the 15th district, everybody, I'll move on. You know, new district, new question. If you're in the same district as somebody else, you have to answer the same questions. Hope that makes sense. All right, and the first question goes to the 15th district, and we'll have Jack Morris answer first. And again, it's 2 minutes per question. I'll raise my hand when you have 30 seconds left. Accessibility. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law into 1990. In 1997, the Indiana Senate instructed the Indiana Fire Prevention and Building Safety Commission to ensure that the Indiana Building Code was in compliance with the ADA. The building code was sent to the Department of Justice for ADA certification. However, certification was denied because the code did not significantly address requiring disability accessibility measures in the alteration, renovation, or remodeling of existing buildings. In effect, a business can do major alterations to an existing building without being required by the state to make the new business accessible to people with disabilities. This seems to be a direct violation of the letter and the intent of the ADA, as well as the instructions of the ADA Senate. Now, here's the question. If you are elected, what would you do to ensure that businesses remodeling an existing structure are required to add disability accessibility as part of their plans?
Well, I would support legislation to require that they do so. Unfortunately, there is still an avenue for people, but the avenue is to pursue in federal court under the ADA, and that is cumbersome in that kind of a situation. And really, it's ineffective. I mean, it's not the best way to pursue things when we have to litigate about them. But when we rebuild, that's the best time. When we're involved in construction at that moment, it is the best time to do it. As we learned with the curb ramps, it doesn't cost much more to build one the right way when you first do it, but it costs a lot more to go tear it up later. And so as we're doing restructuring in a building, as we're spending the money on that structure, it's the best and most efficient time to make the changes. And the ADA does require it, and it is a bit offensive that Indiana's didn't have the teeth in it necessary to comply, because it's a disregard of the philosophy of the ADA that we want to make everything accessible to everyone as much as possible. There are some exceptions for impossibility circumstances, but those should be the exception and not the rule. So when we have the opportunity, when a building is being rehabbed, the state of Indiana should require that they meet the ADA requirements. You know, to me, that's a pretty straightforward thing that we ought to do.
Thank you. And Liz Brown, if you are elected, what will you do to ensure that businesses remodeling existing structures are required to add disability accessibility as part of their plans?
Well, I think in the original question, you stated that in '97, the state asked the state building code group, whatever that association would be called, department, to implement sufficient regulations that then the feds sign off on them. So I guess there's a couple of steps that we'd have to go through, right? First of all, at the time, are the regulations that were currently being promulgated by the federal government, are they the same today? Because as we know, that doesn't always stay the same. And that's a significant amount of time that's passed, 17 years. So I guess what I would want to do first is make sure that Indiana state code is actually, just because it's different doesn't mean it's worse. It actually could be better. So I guess what I'd like to see is I'd like to see if the Indiana state code today has changed significantly, whether or not it matches what was there in '97 with the federal. And if it does, and if it's better, great. If it doesn't, then that's an issue that we have to look at. With respect to how we can address that on a local level, I know from my time on city council that the Metro Board here is actually a local avenue that citizens have to go through to address those kind of ADA non-compliance issues. So there is remedy available, and it's not something, I'm also an attorney, I also do not suggest that going to litigation first, but this is a service provided, funded by your tax dollars to answer those kinds of inaccessibility issues. So as a state senator, I would want to make sure that we're in compliance with the law, but at the same time, there are avenues as we're fixing the law, because you know that's going to take some time, but ultimately it sounds like the issue is going to be the executive branch following through on that. And so there may be a carrot and stick issue to get them to comply. Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
kind of want to make a comment for you on that, just to clarify. I know it's a difficult issue. The current code, Indiana code, is mute on the issue of reconstruction as it relates to being in compliance with federal. It's mute. There's nothing about it at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And the next question will be for Charlie O'Dear in 52nd District. Direct support professionals. Direct support professionals assist people with physical or intellectual disabilities with the development of basic living and social skills and help them be integrated into their communities. Although the number of people seeking these services is growing, DSP wages have not significantly increased, making it difficult to attract and retain people in this vital position. In 2007, Indiana launched an innovative workforce development program, the Direct Support Professionals Project. Through this project, DSPs received opportunities to advance their skills and earnings through certification at Ivy Tech Community College and other venues. Unfortunately, this project was eliminated in 2012 due to budget cuts. And the question is, if elected, would you support refunding the Direct Support Professionals Project? If not, how would you address the need for more DSPs?
Well, I would definitely put it back in place. These are the things, my brother was born with cerebral palsy. He had half of his brain removed back in the 60s. Back in those times, it was unbelievable the things that went through. My parents could have put him in a home, and they didn't, because they were not going to do that. It was never going to happen. I've seen firsthand how somebody coming in and helping in a day-to-day operation could help somebody stay at home. We need more in-home care. We need the possibilities of people where these jobs pay enough that people would want to do them. People can't live on a minimum wage. These are jobs that people do out of their heart. I mean, they care about people. That's the reason they do it. You have to give them an incentive to do that. You have to give them a reason. This world is just getting so crazy with people chasing money and chasing money and chasing money. Here we sit on a $2 billion surplus, and we can't get the basic needs of the people who need it the most. What's wrong? What's wrong with this state? We've got a second board of education we don't need. We're spending millions of dollars on that board. We don't need it. We could put that money to work at everyday projects for everyday people. And that's the things we need to get addressed. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. And the next question will be for Representative Phil Gianquinta, 80th District, and the question is on unemployment. In July of 2014, nearly 70% of the general population was part of the labor force, either working or actively looking for work. However, only 19.4% of people with disabilities were in the labor force. This means that not only are people with disabilities more likely to be unemployed, they are also more likely to be discouraged workers, long-term unemployed, who become discouraged and give up actively searching for jobs. So the question is, what can state governments do to reduce this disparity? If elected, how would you encourage people with disabilities to look for work, and how would you create opportunities for employment for people with disabilities?
Thank you. I think we just need to be vigilant, do all that we can to work with the agencies, particularly those that are here in the room. For example, I work for Fort Wayne City Utilities, and we are in the process of implementing a new billing system. Hopefully have it up and running here in the next 6 to 8 months. But part of that process is the printing and stuffing and putting the addresses on the bill so we can build them out. Of course, we know great postmasters working with Anthony Wayne Services do a great job with that. And that's, I think, one idea that, for example, where I'm working with Fort Wayne City Utilities, do that and kind of just frankly spread the word of some of the good folks that do these sorts of things, and really just need to be sort of vigilant about it, and I think that would help. But I think more importantly is to, if we in government can work with the private sector a little bit more, talk with them, talk the different programs that are out there that do exist, and encourage them to work with folks that need the employment, so we can, as you mentioned, 19%, that we can raise that a little bit higher.
Thank you. And the next question will be for Representative David Ober, 82nd District. And this question is on complete streets guidelines. Complete streets are roadways designed and operated to enable safe access for all users, not just motorists. A complete streets policy ensures that transportation planners and engineers are consistently plan, design, operate, and maintain the entire roadway with all users in mind, including bicyclists, public transportation vehicles and riders, and pedestrians of all ages and abilities. There have been several attempts to adopt complete streets guidelines in Indiana, but the bills have not passed. So the question is, if elected, would you support adopting complete streets guidelines in Indiana?
Doug, thank you for the question. As we know, infrastructure is not just an economic issue, it's also a quality of life issue. When you look at growing communities, you can see that they put a lot of emphasis into their street projects, and part of the quality of life has been expanding walking paths. We see that here in Fort Wayne and up northeast where I'm from. We also see a lot more bike trails being implemented into our sidewalks here in Fort Wayne, as well as when we go down to Indianapolis, they have a very vibrant system. So I'm very aware of the importance of that, and how we empower local mayors and city councils to be able to complete these programs and do it in a responsible manner that is not too costly for their taxpayers. As far as implementing these kinds of guidelines into future planning for these projects, I would want to make sure that we take a very smart look at it, so that if it's a voluntary program for for individual communities, whether there's grants made available to those communities who would want to do this, and that there would be strict guidelines attached to those dollars. That's the kind of approach that I would take with this kind of program, is that you would provide some government monies for these infrastructure projects in the form of community development block grants, and that there would be some strings attached to how they use those dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is for Fred Haig, 84th District. And this question is on disability advocacy. Disability stakeholders in Northeast Indiana work together to find the best and most cost-effective solutions to provide for the long-term health and welfare of people with disabilities. It is our expectation that we will work with our legislators to the same end. So the question is, if elected, how would you work with disability advocacy groups and individual disability advocates to assure full inclusion for people with disabilities?
I like to think of myself as a servant leader. I spent years in nonprofit organizations, either being president or on boards, and served as the president of the Fort Wayne Education Association, also on the executive board of the Indiana State Teachers Association, and for 7 years on leadership committees at the National Education Association level. All of those issues which I championed involved and were part of my passion for education and my passion for each individual, no matter their status in life. And I would be an advocate because I'm willing to listen. A lot of people find themselves in a position in which they begin to not listen. They begin to shut off the people that they represent. I have found that to be true in some of the issues that are going on at the state level. As a teacher, an advocate for public education, been very disturbed with the lack of enthusiasm for public schooling here in Indiana. And I would be very willing to talk to anybody about disability advocacy and support any issue that they would ask to have support.
Thank you. And we're going back to the 15th District. This question will be for Jack Morris first. And the topic is Medicaid waivers. Currently, over 8,000 people are on the waiting list for Medicaid waiver services in Indiana. And the question is, would you support increasing funding for Medicaid waiver services? And are there other areas of government spending you would consider cutting to free up funding for Medicaid waiver services?
It is one of the areas that's a real question about allocation of resources. I've had a few clients that have been on a long waiting list to get on the waiver of Medicaid, and it is extremely harmful to them and their family life having to wait for that. And it's a shame when we cut those kind of services where you can't get that processed in a timely manner. And so that is an area we would need to use funding for. Now, when we talk about making room for it elsewhere, the reality is so often we spend money on the symptoms and the problems, but we don't spend it on the thing that will stop having a lot of those problems. And this is one of those areas. When we don't invest in the caseworkers to help assist the process of getting through these programs, we end up having the individuals who should be benefiting actually having a lot more problems because they're not getting the assistance they need, and therefore we end up having more expensive situations. It's truthfully, this is one of the fundamental problems of our government as it goes, is that we fail to look at how do we prevent the problem from developing in the first place instead of all the money we spend on the problem. And a lot of that, when we deal with the people with disabilities and the advocacy groups, if we would be more aggressive on dealing with those issues before they spring up more deeply, we would actually save money in the process. And the Medicaid waiver would be a place that we actually save money if we process them quicker.
Thank you. And Liz Brown.
I guess I'd want to know first why the 8,000 people who are on the Medicaid waiver list are on the list. Are they waiting? There is not funding to process them, or is the system itself inefficient? I mean, I think we've all experienced inefficiencies in government, and certainly if that's the case, if it's a bureaucracy that's not responsive, then I think we can do something about that. But if it's not that, if it's a funding issue, then we do need to look at that, but I'd also want to then open up the door, so to speak, and look at the people we're currently on. We saw in this current economic crisis in 2007, a lot of, and I can attest because my husband's a physician, a lot of able-bodied young people got on disability because they didn't have a job, and unfortunately, they're probably not going to get off anytime soon. So I'd like to make sure that the people who are on are not taking the spots of those who are actually deserving of that first. And that may not really be a significant number and may not actually end up really freeing up a lot of significant dollars. But let's always make sure that the system that we have is working well before we just throw more money at it and think we can solve that as a way of fixing the problem.
Thank you. And the next question is for Charles O'Dear, 52nd District. And the topic is autism and medical insurance coverage. The Indiana autism mandate requires insurers to cover medically necessary services for autism treatment and does not allow insurers to impose an age limit on treatments. However, many families of children with autism are struggling to get coverage or to keep coverage once they have it. So the question is, if elected, are there steps you would take to help families of people with autism to get the help they need?
Well, I have friends of mine who have children with autism, and I know he drives a long way to get his doctor's appointments for his children. This is one of those questions that's really, really hard. We know is a major problem and is growing at an astonishing rate. The real answer to it, I'm not really sure. I would just have to dig in and find out where we go and how we get there. Because I'm just going to tell you the truth. The thing is so out of control. And it's so lost. And there's nobody really advocating for them on an everyday basis. I know there's foundations out there and there's some groups out there, but they're so far and few between that there's not really a group to head the spearhead. And until we get something like that, I just really don't know what we could do. I would love to have a group show me where to go. I would want to listen, I want to hear, and get your ideas about where we need to go with it. Because that's an area I'm not really familiar with, and I'm going to tell you that. But there's got to be a way to address one of the fastest growing issues in this country. And we got to bring people together to do it. And who those people are? It's the parents. We got to get a group of parents that are willing to fight. We got to get them together, we got to give them one voice, and we got to make them loud. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is for Representative Phil Giaquinta, 80th District. And the topic is gas tax. Indiana taxes gasoline at 18 cents per gallon, a rate set in 2003, and it is 5 cents below the national average. In the years since then, the price of virtually everything has increased, from road construction to public transportation. Public transit systems are vital to people with disabilities, but many are struggling to keep open their doors. So the question is, would you support increasing Indiana's gasoline tax rate to keep pace with inflation? If not, do you have other plans for funding public transportation?
Thanks for the question. I'm certainly open to considering that and listening to the discussion. Forget what the exact increase in revenue, even a penny or two, would bring in. It's quite a bit. So I certainly would consider that. It's interesting because you're absolutely correct. Times are changing. I mean, we're looking at greener cars, if you will, that are out there, and more cars getting more miles to the gallon and things like that. So it's definitely put some strain on our funding from the gas tax with regards to mass transit. We've had quite a bit of debate regarding this, regarding mass transit. I think it's something that we all want to do, or most are in favor of. How we fund it is really the key. We're making these little baby steps, particularly around the Marion County area. But certainly, you know, when we all want folks to have a job and be able to work, they certainly have to be able to get to their job. So it's going to be important to make sure that public transit is well funded, and I'm certainly anxious to take a look and kind of weigh the pluses and minuses of raising the gas tax and what the impact that actually would have on state revenue. I wish I knew the number. I can't remember even just raising it a penny, but I know it'd be quite a bit. So I'm certainly open to that.
Thank you. And the next question is for Representative David Ober. And the topic is Veterans Disability Claims. A new law created a legal clinic program benefiting Indiana veterans. Indiana law schools can create clinics where law students can help guide veterans through the disability claims process. In addition to helping veterans with disabilities, the law will help students gain experience in Veterans Affairs issues. Currently, the program will be funded by donations and sponsorships. In 2015, the Indiana State Legislature will determine funding for the program, which will likely determine how long the program will last. So the question is, if elected, do you feel this program is one you would support? And if not, what would you do to help Indiana veterans with disabilities get the benefits they need?
Again, another great question, and having been in the legislature when this law was passed, I can say that this is one of those things that it was one true issue where we felt like we could actually make a difference in the lives of so many here in our state. I think the intent of the law was that this would be some kind of a pilot program, see how this would work, get some experience, and then funnel resources if it was something that truly was going to make a dent in the problem. If that data comes back next year, which I expect that it will, that program is working, that it's being well utilized, I would say that it should be something that we invest more dollars into and fully support that. And not only support just for veterans, but also I can see this program being opened up and utilized for other groups of people that can utilize the services as well.
Thank you. And I believe that's Thad Gerardo who just showed up?
Yes.
That's correct? Okay. I'll give you the next question since you haven't had a chance yet, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer the question. When you have 30 seconds left, I'll raise my hand. So the topic is, I don't think I said the district. Thad Gerardo, 81st District. Oh, that's true, that's true. I should let you make an opening statement. 3 minutes for an opening statement, please.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for having me today. I apologize that I'm late. Unfortunately, I still work a regular job, so 8 to 5, and I had to stay late today. A little bit about me. I'm born and raised here in Fort Wayne. I went to Bishop Dwenger High School. I graduated from IPFW, and I work and live downtown. My basic philosophy isn't necessarily on the size of government, it's the effectiveness. And I think we need to have an effective government that works just for the average Joe, the average person. And when I talk about what I actually believe in my philosophy, I don't try to use labels, because I feel labels in discussions. And too often, we haven't come to an issue with an open mind. And I feel more and more people need to shed the labels, look at common sense, and actually talk about issues. I'm a Democrat from a huge Republican Catholic family, so I've had a lot of discussions. And I would like to, so when I describe myself, I come to the table with an open mind every time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to say the answer?
Okay, and your question will be on the minimum wage. The minimum wage in Indiana is $7.25 an hour, the same as the federal minimum wage. As of July 2014, Indiana had a 5.9% unemployment rate. Many other states, including our neighbor Ohio, had a higher minimum wage but lower unemployment. So the question is, if elected, would you support raising Indiana's minimum wage?
Yes, actually, I've thought a lot about this issue actually, and unfortunately, this is one of those issues that the discussion ends a lot. A lot of times extremes on both sides end the discussion with either an extreme on this side saying we need a huge amount of money as minimum wage, an extreme on this side not recognizing the amount of poverty that's going on here in our own city. So when I talk about minimum wage, I think there's actually a good compromise on this issue. In fact, I looked up and Ohio does have the same minimum wage as us, but for small businesses. Companies making under $283,000 a year have the same minimum wage as Indiana. As companies making over that is where it's $780. And that seems like a reasonable compromise here. I mean, I've been in the neighborhoods quite a bit, and in my district we have very, very poor neighborhoods and we have very, very wealthy neighborhoods. It's downtown all the way to DuPont. So I've seen the effects of people living in poverty, and in the year 2000, Fort Wayne had a poverty rate of 9%, people living under the poverty line. 2014, that's 23%. That's a problem. 725 in 2007 isn't 725 in 2014. We need to recognize that and realize we shouldn't be saying that's acceptable in our state. So I think a reasonable compromise would be raise the minimum wage, but I don't want to hurt small businesses either. People in my family have small businesses, and I understand that if you're a mom and pop shop or you're a millennial trying to start your first business, you can't sometimes afford high wages. So we would put a cap. If your business makes over that $300,000 mark, we'll do an increment. States like Hawaii and Maryland have an increment stage where every year it goes up just a little bit, so it's not a huge shock to your business. And I think that would be a good compromise. I think both sides would be happy about that, and it would be better for everybody.
Thank you. Okay, I believe Representative Goldberg just went, and so we're skipping to Fred Hay, right?
You forgot
Yes, Casey Cox.
Casey Cox came in. That's 85th, so not there yet. So next question is for Representative Fred Hay, 84th District, and the topic is direct support professionals. Direct support professionals assist people with physical or intellectual disabilities with the development of basic living and social skills and help them be integrated into their communities. In 2007, Indiana launched an innovative workforce development program, the Direct Support Professionals Project, which allowed DSPs to advance their skills and earnings through certification at Ivy Tech Community College. Unfortunately, this program was eliminated in 2012 due to budget cuts. If elected, would you support refunding the program? And if not, how would you address the need for more DSPs?
I would support refunding that program. And the last 4 or 5 years, we have cut huge amounts from our budget. Over $500 million cut just from public education. And we're real proud now to have a $2 billion surplus. But we've cut essential funding. A lot of people need to have some assistance. And for us as a state to assume no one needs assistance, everyone can pull themselves up by the bootstraps is not practical. Our state does not lead the nation in helping the lowest of the low. And this bill would allow some people to get an education or to get the ability, certified ability to assist others. That's worth investing in. Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Casey Cox, 85th District. First, 3 minutes for an opening statement, please.
I think we're close to 6:30, so I won't quite take 3 minutes, but my apologies for coming a little late as well. When Sherry contacted me about coming, I certainly wanted to do so. I was out of town and just got back in, but thank you very much for having me. My name is Casey Cox, and for the past about a year, I've represented the 85th District, which is a eastern portion of Fort Wayne and East Allen County. and still continuing to learn as much as I can and take in as much as I can. I'm actually unopposed this November, but the flip side, the delight to that has been that it's given me an opportunity to go to Indianapolis over the summer a few times, to be able to focus on some issues of concern for me, new opportunities for entrepreneurs, and college costs for veterans, among many others, among a number of other bills that I've been working on. One of the great things about coming to forums like this, as well as general constituent interaction, I've found is there's so much that our leaders in government can learn from people they come across in the day-to-day life. I can't tell you in my short time there how many times I've received a phone call, an email, or a letter from someone, maybe even about an issue that I really didn't even know much about. But because of that concern, I was prompted to learn more about it and to do my best to be their representative and to advocate for them. And that's really, I think, one of the great values of forums like this, and I look forward to hanging out a little bit for the reception afterwards and talking with you. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you. I will let you answer at least one question since you did show up. And the topic is unemployment. In July of 2014, nearly 70% of the general population was part of the labor force, either working or actively looking for work. However, only 19.4% of people with disabilities were in the labor force. This means that not only are people with disabilities more likely to be unemployed, they are also more likely to be discouraged workers, long-term unemployed who become discouraged and give up actively searching for jobs. So the question is, what can state governments do to reduce this disparity? If elected, how would you encourage people with disabilities to look for work, and how would you create employment opportunities for people with disabilities?
Thank you very much for the question. One bill we worked on last year that comes to mind that I think interfaces with the question that you just asked, as well as a question I think you asked of Representative Ogler, had to do with veterans with disabilities, really veterans in general, but as we know, so many people, so many veterans come back with disabilities, whether it's physical or post-traumatic stress of that order. And this was an issue that we focused on. We focused specifically on veterans, but we also noticed that our veterans with disabilities really were lagging in the workforce and unemployment rate. And one of the things that we did is we made sure that employers could discriminate against those folks. And I think that's one thing that certainly state government can do, can step in and make sure that there is equal opportunity for, whether in this case it was veterans or veterans with disabilities, or generally people with disabilities all around. And make sure that to the extent the state government can, that there's a fair and level playing field so that people are encouraged, are incentivized to look for work opportunities and be able to take advantage of the resources that are available to them.
Thank you. Is Sherry closing or am I closing?
We can split the difference.
Split the difference.
I thank you very much for coming. I think that all of the questions have been asked. If you could stay around, visit with the various constituents that are here, and talk about some of these issues in more depth, I think they would be very grateful to have those conversations with you. They're going to be bringing in some refreshments for us here in a minute. And I just want to thank all of you for coming. We really appreciate it. It's a good forum. We'd like to be able to meet with you on a more regular basis as we move into for those of you who are elected, as we move into the legislative session this year. Thank you, all of you.